I wasn't going to say I told you so, but I told you so. We just got the 3rd episode of the Book of Boba Fett, and it is my solemn duty as your resident Latino pop culture guide to break it down for you. In case it wasn't absolutely obvious, spoilers ahead, so make sure you drop a like, hit that subscribe button with the noti bell on, watch the damn thing, and then come back. The first thing we get is the droid AD-8 briefing Boba Fett on how Bib Fortuna was failing to maintain order in Mos Espa. Is it just me, or should this briefing have happened before Boba became the daimyo? Never mind, we're moving on. From this beautiful exposition dump, we learned that after the power vacuum was created once Jabba the Hutt was sent on permanent vacation, Mos Espa was divided into multiple territories. The Trandoshans occupied the city center, which we saw a sneak preview for in episode 2. The Aqualish have taken control of the Workers' District, and the Klatooinians, mi madre, that is really hard to pronounce, they took control of the spaceport. With me so far? Good. Bib Fortuna, unsurprisingly, did not command the respect that his predecessor did, so he relied on making sleazy alliances with other crime syndicates in order to keep his title. Honestly, I find it really convenient that Turbo 1 and 2, I mean, Jabba's cousins, didn't come to overtake Bib Fortuna when he was daimyo, and they waited until Boba took office in order to slug themselves into the frame. Yeah, no break. I don't buy it. Moving on, we need something to fumble the plot along, so Boba agrees to help this sleazy water merchant to take care of the street gang that has been, of course, stealing his water. These people right here are what is being described on the internet as the Power Ranger crew. A street gang comprised of half-man, half-machine cyborgs who basically augmented their body with droid parts to make themselves more deadly. Essentially, it's Detroit Become Human Star Wars edition. Got it? By now, we know that Boba is a man of his word, so he goes into the city center accompanied by his posse to confront the gang.
Let's morph.
We learn that apparently the Workers' District is only there by name because just like in real life, there is no work anywhere. The greedy water merchant reveals his true colors though, and he says that the street gang owes him 1,500 credits for the stolen water. And Boba Fett is like, 15 hundo for water? No papi, you're gonna be chill with 500. We repay the debt for the cyborg squad, Boba offers them employment, and everybody's happy. Yeah, at this point, we kinda have to address some things. So far, we are in episode 3, and there's meant to be 7 in total for the season. And a certain sector of the fandom is really frustrated with the Book of Boba Fett for being a super slow burn. We're essentially covering 2 timelines, one through flashbacks and one in the present time continuum. It's starting to get a little convoluted, and for some people, they can find it boring. While I do think that episode 3 has been the slowest one of the bunch, I am a huge fan of lore expansion, so this hits right up my alley. Dios mío, I have been blessed by the gods with these transition skills because of course it is time for another flashback. We got the usual serving, a brief recollection of Kamino, Jango Fett's departures, as a somber reminder that Boba Fett's childhood is deeply affecting his mental stability. The most important part of this section of the story is the fact that Boba Fett has an audience with the Pikes. But before we get too carried away, we should note that there is a really cool Easter egg here. Boba Fett is riding into Mos Eisley in a bantha, which, if I may add, is freaking awesome. There we get a pretty obvious nod to The Mandalorian Season 1 and 2, where we see the Stormtrooper helmets from the Stormtroopers that were defeated at the end of Return of the Jedi being stuck on spikes. Not only that, we also get a cool little nod to the future babysitter of everybody's favorite child, Mr. Grogu. Who could it be but none other than Pale Moto walking through the frame with her pit droids following around.
Damage one of my droids, you'll pay for it.
Anywho, back to the story, we got a big celebrity cameo. Phil LaMarr is playing the role of the Pike Captain. If you don't know who Phil LaMarr is, he's played a bunch of characters within the Star Wars lore. He's been in the Clone Wars series, he's played Bail Organa during Star Wars Rebels, he is a GOAT. He reveals that the Kintan Striders, the speeder gang that we saw earlier in episode 2, has already parlayed with the Pikes for protection. Of course, money doesn't grow on trees. Literally, nothing grows on trees. In fact, nothing grows anywhere in Tatooine because it is literally a desert planet. And thus, the higher-ups at the Pike organization have forbidden the captain to pay protection money to 2 different groups. It is at this moment that I would have expected Boba Fett to haggle a little bit harder, but I digress. Once he agrees and turns back to head back home, we get some sad news. As if nobody could have guessed that treason is a pretty common occurrence on this planet, the speeder gang literally Dumbledored all the Tusken Raiders. Sad. The only one that we don't see bite the dust is the female warrior that helped him build his gaffy stick. I ascribe to the general notion that if you don't see the body, they're not dead, so we're probably gonna see her in a different episode. I felt pretty emotional at this moment, and so did Boba, because he proceeded to do a full funeral pile, just like we've seen countless other times in the Star Wars lore. Time and time again after, for example, Qui-Gon Jinn's death, and then Anakin Skywalker once he returns from the dark side. Ladies and gentlemen, hold on to your seatbelts because now is when the episode truly gets saucy. As expected and as I predicted in my very first video talking about this topic, Black Krrsantan shows up and is ready for the smoke. This absolute menace to society took Boba Fett straight out of the bacta tank. He didn't even let him get dressed and he squared up. We get a beautiful and yet very one-sided battle because BK is coming here to chop heads like the Rentis do. But another time for an Easter egg, he goes at Boba with a pretty familiar weapon. Our rogue Wookiee is sporting an electrified version of the brass knuckles that he used to knock out Chewbacca. Obviously, we know that if he would have continued, the show would have ended there, but that's not why we're here. So of course, we get another appearance from the Power Ranger crew and they save Boba Fett from an involuntary spinal adjustment.
We gotta hang in there!
After some less than stellar fighting, which I admit could have been a lot more fun if they let BK go full wild like he did in the gladiatorial battle pits, he tackles the two Gamorrean guards and they crash into the throne room where, of course, he's tricked into stumbling into the Rancor pit. So far, Boba Fett has been the daimyo for less than an episode and a half and he already has 2 assassination attempts in the docket. That's what I call efficiency. After our main bounty hunter recovers from being caught in 4K, we get the most substantial part in the episode. Somebody sent BK in order to collect Boba, and of course, it was the S-tier abomination known as the Twins. After some less than friendly banter, they come in and apparently apologize for some reason, which honestly I did not expect. Here is where Boba Fett gives them an ultimatum. He will consider their transgression as null if they take their sloppy behinds back to Nal Hutta.
Go on.
He is even willing to let Black Krrsantan go, which is ludicrous, bro. He literally came at your head, cabrón. Como que how? Of course, at this point, you should know the Hutts are petty as fuck. So he literally said, nah fam, you can keep the bounty hunter. We're just gonna come give you a present for your troubles. When I tell you that my eyes nearly popped out of their sockets, I am not exaggerating because the gift of the century is a brand new Rancor and it conveniently comes with a new trainer in the form of Danny Trejo. I was really happy to see my man Danny join the Star Wars universe, especially because he is Robert Rodriguez's second cousin, so this is a family affair. And speaking of family, you can see my transition game is really saucy. As a professional courtesy, Boba Fett lets his former partner Black Krrsantan go without a hitch. I really doubt that this is going to be the end of our Wookiee experience with him, so fully expect him to show up in another episode or at least in the Kenobi show. The next scene was absolutely sensational because we get a nice chunk of lore expansion and you know that shit is like honey to me. Apparently, Rancors can get depressed because they are super emotionally complex creatures. Tejo, the best Rancor wrangler this side of Tatooine, also remarks that they can actually become super loving. So what you're saying, Papa, is that they're really huge dogs without hair. However, just like a Twilight werewolf, they can also imprint on the first human that they see. So as you can probably tell where I'm going, Boba Fett has met his new lifelong friend. Sidebar, I have to say, for this to be a completely CGI version of the Rancor compared to the puppet that we saw in The Return of the Jedi, this looked absolutely beautiful visually. The other two references that I wanted to cover on this scene are pretty cool. Danny Trejo, the Wrangler, mentions that the witches of Dathomir used to ride the Rancors across forests and all their lands. If you remember that name, it's because we've seen the witches of Dathomir across Star Wars media. We saw them in the Clone Wars, and we also saw the last surviving one in Jedi The Fallen Order, the video game. Obviously, Mr. Boba Fett wants to ride this thing. And he delivers another cool Easter egg because he mentions that he's ridden a beast 10 times his size before. All of you longtime Star Wars fans know exactly what is up because he is referring to the Star Wars Holiday Special, where we see an animated Boba Fett cartoon riding the mighty Mythosaur. Pretty neat, huh? We are going to speed round through the end of the episode because this is a lot of information. Essentially, the person that was behind everything was Mok Shaiz. Boba tries to make him a visit at the Mos Espa City Hall, and of course the Mayordomo is trying to fake that his boss is super busy. That sleazy Mayordomo bolts out of there in a speeder, and what ensues is the most anticlimactic chase scene in the entirety of Star Wars history. The Power Ranger gang is chasing the Mayordomo through the city in his speedster, but they are literally going at 20 miles per hour. The best thing about this scene, however, is the cool little Easter egg. One of the Power Ranger crew members stumbles into a couple of merchants that are holding a painting as he breaks it. If you look closely, that painting is a canvas, which holds Ralph McQuarrie's original concept art for Return of the Jedi, which features Jabba the Hutt and Boba Fett in their original glory. After a less than great escape attempt, the Mayordomo is obviously captured. And after literally one look from Boba Fett, he squeals like a canary. We learn that Mayor Mok Shaiz has been working with the Pikes the whole time. Now it is time for my big theory for this episode. My big theory for the cinematic extravaganza is that the Pikes are not the main baddie, it is the Crimson Dawn. If that name sounds very familiar, it is a criminal syndicate created by Darth Maul during the Clone Wars, which eventually fell under the control of Kira, Han Solo's ex-girlfriend. So could we see tie-ins to Han Solo or Emilia Clarke's Kira in the future? We don't know, but it would be damn good to find out. This was a lot of information, but let's bring this one home. After further review and watching the episode a couple of times, I can definitely agree that this is the slowest one of the bunch. It was mostly exposition, and while we got some amazing scenes and the introduction of Black Krrsantan, it was kind of subpar. The chase scene also kind of spoiled it for me because, bro, it was like 20 miles per hour. I would have rather you walk. But watching Mr. BK disrespect everybody in the tri-state area was absolutely saucy. You could say it was worth the price of admission. Okay, I am going to give this episode a solid... think 8.3 out of 10. It was not sensational like episode 2, but it wasn't bad. Well, familia, that is the end for me, but before you move on, I would be remiss if I didn't remind you to hit that like, let me know what you thought of this breakdown, and share it with your friends. Also, make sure you hit that subscribe button with the notification bell on so you can get instant notifications for whenever I post next or whenever I go live. And if you were wondering if there's any other ways that you can support this channel, you should know that my merch link is already in my bio. And we are officially partners on YouTube, which means that we have our YouTube memberships. Essentially, it's a 3-tier monthly subscription that you can purchase in order to directly support me. It comes with some pretty saucy perks, like some emotes that you can use during my live stream. You also get instant access and early access to my other videos, and much more. All you have to do is click the button that you see on my page, check out the option that best suits you and your budget, and again, this is not mandatory, but it is very much appreciated. As always, make sure you drop a smile, stay safe, and I'll see you on the next one, Papi. Blow!